Okay, let's talk emanationism, metaphysics. Because there's quite a few people out there who always like to tell me that the black sun has nothing to do with flat earth. But in actuality, when you say something like that, it just goes to show that you know absolutely nothing about emanationistic metaphysics. Understanding where the one, the monad, is the singularity, is the same as the two, the polarity, duality, where it's simultaneously also the same as a holy trinity of dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity, which is also the divine quadruplicity of the two lights and the two darknesses. And this is based off the work of Ken Wheeler. Now, the black sun, the central vortex, is God, the universal one creator, which is the black hole sun, that is God, which is the monad, and it is perceived as the quintessential primordial divine source, the holy trinity of frequency, energy, and vibration. That's another holy trinity as well, that permeates and animates the entire cosmos in resonance. So if you wanted to make it a quadruplicity as well, it would be energy, frequency, vibration, and resonance right there. Okay, so now we all know the Bible verses, the verses that actually literally describe what God is, which is Psalms 84:11 says that the Lord God is a sun and a shield, literally. And also 1 John 1:5 says that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. So you have to understand light and illumination. There is no light in what's called illumination, because illumination is not light. A shadow is not a thing at all, but rather a shadow is the absence of light. And similarly, magnetism is the mirage or the shadow of dielectricity. So light and illumination, they are an inseparable pair with each other. So dielectric magnetism is, very simply to define it, is with the black and white yin-yang symbol. And there's also a lower manifested form, which is the red and blue yin-yang symbol, representing polarity of electrification of the redshift and blue shift of the color spectrum. Because in physics and in material science, dielectricity can be understood as the property of certain materials that exhibits and regenerates an infinite amount of spontaneous electric polarization, which would be an internal electric alignment that arises naturally without an external source. It's repeatedly reoccurring and regenerating itself. So in this case, what I'm talking about is the most highest scale in terms of the central vortex in the middle of the earth, the center. So dielectric magnetism is regarded as the spiritual breath of God the Creator, the universal one, infinite intelligence, omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, existing beyond all qualification, all limitations, and all conditioned forms. Most people, they have a difficult time comprehending when I say that the black sun is God, that this energy is God. Because you think about it, it's emanating everything into the living ethereal field that sustains manifestation itself. So, I mean, you just put two and two together. That's why I'm saying that the black sun is God. Because human beings also carry this same essential essence and fundamental composition as God does, as that energy does. We're just not on the same magnitude that God is, because humanity exists as a lower dimensional slice or a lower dimensional expression or fragmentation or a lower dimensional compartmentalization of this universal godly force. We are all like little godlet droplets, because like the divine toroidal field from the black sun, we too are electromagnetic and sonoluminescent entities, like a biological salt magnet. And each of us, again, we have a black sun inside of us, surrounded by an individual toroidal field, the aura field, the biofield, through which energetic currents circulate continuously, as well as the zodiac principles, are symbolically reflected within the human body, echoing the ancient Hermetic maximum, as above, so below, where the macro mirrors the micro, right? So, in this interpretation, we are talking about the Holy Trinity of dielectricity, magnetism, and electrification or electricity. So, dielectricity corresponds to the black light, the hidden and potential field of the ether energy, which is the middle center core, the center vortex. Magnetism corresponds to the white light, the organizing, attractive principle of polarity and motion. And magnetism also corresponds, the white light corresponds to Polaris, which is the refractive point where the black sunlight comes up and hits the spot of Polaris where it differentiates and breaks up from its purity and goes through its refraction from there. And then you have electricity, which manifests through the red and blue shifted spectrum coming from that refraction. The visible dynamic of expression of energetic interaction is vibration unfolding sequentially in that order: dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity. Together, these three energies describe the relationship between the eternal source, consciousness itself, and the manifested form of our world. And this corresponds also with God's three eternal energies of the Bhagavad Gita, as it describes Hare Krishna, the Supreme Lord's energies, the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, cosmic energy becomes manifested. In the Bhagavad Gita, it explains how the Lord has one, internal spiritual energy, which is the causal origin. Two, it has the marginal energy, the living force, the astral manifestation. And it has three, the external energy, the material, physical nature, the matter substance of this energy. And these three distinct categories explain the relationship between the divine, the individual soul, and the physical cosmos. Dielectricity, black light, is the rest point, the internal, eternal spiritual energy, which corresponds with counter space, or the counter spatial core of the black hole at the center of the world, and that is inertia or acceleration. Okay? And then magnetism, white light, is the marginal energy, which corresponds to the force in motion, which is opposite of the dielectricity rest principle. And then thirdly, electricity is the external or the physical energy, the physical effect, the manifested electrical effect or the outcome of these two higher field modalities that are simultaneously happening, which electricity is the red shift, blue shift within that black and white color spectrum. So centripetal convergence represents the inward movement toward the hidden center, the dielectric principle that is associated with black light, stillness, implosion, and the unseen ethereal source. It symbolizes contraction, integration, compression, and the drawing inward of energy toward the central vortex or the black sun. This is the motion of return, coherence, and unification back into the primordial toroidal field. And then centrifugal divergence represents the outward movement away from the center. It diverges outward. It's the magnetic and electrical expression of expansion, rotation, projection, and the manifestation into visible form. Through polarity, motion, and vibratory interaction, energy unfolds outward into the luminous red and blue shifted spectrum, generating the observable structures and dynamics of the manifested world that we see. This is the motion of expansion, differentiation, and expression across the toroidal field. So as I've said before, dielectricity, the black sun, the aether, the toroidal field, and free energy, and the firmament are all not different things, but they are all one and the same thing. from different perspectives. Black light is associated with dielectricity. It interacts abrasively with white light, associated with magnetism. And from this interaction emerges the red shifted and blue shifted spectrum, the electrical radiance that is symbolically attributed to the sun in the sky itself. So the black light, the black sun, dielectricity starting below goes up, manifests into the white light, magnetism, and then it gets dispersed out into the redshift and blue shift, electricity. All right, so you have dielectricity, magnetism, and then electricity. Black light, white light, red and blue spectrum. And through this electrified manifestation, illumination, and vitality, they are all believed to extend throughout the entire world, allowing the full diversity of visible colors and forms to blossom into our perception. Black light and white light are not regarded as colors in the regular ordinary sense because they are understood to exist beyond the visible vibratory spectrum, rather than functioning as transverse wave expressions or transverse wave expressions like the red and blue shifted spectrum. They are interpreted as longitudinal or scalar field modalities, primordial principles underlying manifestation itself. Black light emanating from the black sun is associated with dielectricity, and it's identified with the ethereal substratum, the original and eternal light that is underlying creation. White light represents the complementary counterpart of this same field dynamic, magnetism, the organizing and polarizing principle of motion and attraction. So when dielectricity and magnetism interact through this energetic abrasion, which is tension or friction, they generate electrification, electricity. Electricity is not the primordial cause, but rather it's the physical effect that is born from this dynamic interplay between these two fundamental field modalities or field conditions. So the source of all light is the monad, the primordial singularity from which all emanation unfolds from. There are fundamentally two iconic depictions that most people recognize. Again, you have the classical black and white yin and yang symbol representing the monad, eternal interplay of polarization itself. And then the colored variation that is also found on the South Korea flag, where cosmic balance is expressed through a more dynamic spectrum of energetic harmony and rotational equilibrium, is the blue and red yin-yang symbol. Okay? So you have the trinity of dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity, and then you have the quadruplicity, the two lights and the two darknesses. You have one, the monad, which is the first darkness, the absolute. Two, dielectricity, which is the first light, the black sun. And then three is electricity, the second darkness as a reflection of the first. And then four is magnetism, the second light as manifested reflection again. So in other words, you could say number one is the monad, the absolute, which is neither centripetal or centrifugal. It is the origin, the nexus point. And then number two is dielectricity, the inward convergence, which is centripetal. That's the black sun, ethereal potential. Number three is electricity, the reflection of the monad, the dynamic equilibrium, which is illumination and consciousness. And four, which is magnetism, is outward divergence, the centrifugal, the manifestation of form or phenomena that we see. So the interesting point is that the third mirrors the first and the fourth mirrors the second in the emanationistic metaphysics of the two lights and the two darknesses. The monad is invisible and unknowable in essence. Electricity is the visible image of that invisible unity. Dielectricity is the hidden field of convergence, and magnetism is the visible field of divergence. So the pattern again becomes the first and the third are paired together, the second and the fourth are paired together. So the monad and electricity are paired, and dielectricity and magnetism are paired together. Okay? So this follows the same pattern that is found all throughout different types of esoteric philosophies in the world. Whether it's Advaita Vedanta, which is a Hindu Brahmin philosophy, Platonism, Pythagoreanism, Buddhism, Neoplatonic and Hermetic emanationistic metaphysics, where the higher principle remains hidden while a lower principle acts as its visible reflection. The doctrine of the two lights and the two darknesses can be understood through four primary states of reality. The first is the monad, the absolute one. This is the primordial source beyond all manifestation, beyond motion, beyond polarity, and beyond all attributes. It is neither centripetal nor centrifugal because it exists prior to those distinctions. It is the eternal nexus point, the unmoved center from which all emanation comes from, where everything proceeds from. It is the all-encompassing field, the ineffable source, the eternal presence underlying all existence. The second is dielectricity. This is the first appearance of the one in manifestation. It is the inward moving principle of centripetal convergence. It is the black sun, the hidden ethereal source, the dielectric field of potential and compression. Here, all things move toward unity, coherence, and integration. Dielectricity represents the invisible generative power of creation, the inward breath of the cosmos. The third is electricity. Electricity is the reflection of the monad within manifestation. Just as the first is the hidden source beyond all phenomena, the third becomes its visible image. Electricity is illumination, consciousness, awareness, and active expression. It is the dynamic appearance of the one within the world of experience. The third mirrors the first, revealing in manifestation what eternally exists in principle. And the fourth is magnetism. Magnetism is the manifested reflection of dielectricity. So what dielectricity performs inwardly through convergence, magnetism expresses outwardly through divergence. It is centrifugal expansion, projection, radiation, polarity, and form. Magnetism produces the world of appearance, multiplicity, and phenomena. It is the outward breath of creation. Therefore, the first circle and the third circle form one pair. The monad is the hidden source. Electricity is the visible illumination. The second circle and the fourth circle form the second pair. Dielectricity is the hidden convergence. Magnetism is the visible divergence. Together, they create the mystery of the two lights and the two darknesses. The first darkness is the monad, the unknowable absolute beyond manifestation. The first light is dielectricity, the hidden field of centripetal generation. The second darkness is electricity, appearing as the reflected image of the absolute within manifestation. The second light is magnetism, the visible world of radiant expression and polarity. The monad contains it all. Dielectricity gathers it all. Electricity reveals it all. And magnetism manifests it all. From the one comes the field. From the field comes illumination. From illumination comes form. And through form, all things ultimately return back to the one. So it's a quadruplicity and it's also a trinity at the same time. But it's still a duality, polarity, but it's also still a singularity.